Go ahead.
Our mission. Helping Parents Heal is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting bereaved parents. Through support and resources offered, we aspire to help individuals become shining light parents, meaning a shift from a state of emotional heaviness to one of hopefulness and greater peace of mind. Helping Parents Heal goes a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and afterlife evidence in a non dogmatic way. Helping Parents Heal affiliate groups welcome everyone, regardless of religious or non religious background, and encourage open dialogue. Attendance at all Helping Parents Heal meetings is voluntary. All discussions that take place at affiliate led meetings are confidential. We hope that participants will learn from and share with each other. Zoom meetings run by leadership are not confidential. These meetings typically feature guest presenters and are posted on YouTube so that affiliate members worldwide can watch and benefit. Neither type of Helping Parents Heal meeting is designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers, allowing parents to learn about many possible ways to heal. This includes presenters covering progressive topics such as afterlife evidence and connecting with our children who have passed. The views expressed by our guest speakers may or may not reflect the opinions of Helping Parents Heal leaders and members, so we ask that you take from their presentations whatever may benefit you personally. Welcome, everyone. We're so glad you're with us this evening, and thank you, Rob, for being here.
Yes, thank you, Rob, for being here. We're thrilled that you are. And I have a short bio for Rob that I'd love to read. And I just wanted to make sure before I started, this is funny because we have a new bio, so I want to make sure I have the correct one. Let me make sure. This is funny. Anyway, as I'm getting started, Rob Schwartz offers between life soul regressions to help people heal and understand their life plans. In a BLSR, you can speak directly with your council of elders, the wise, loving, and highly evolved beings who can tell you what you plan for your current lifetime and why, how well you're fulfilling, how well you're fulfilling your plan and how you may better fulfill your plan. His first book, which is Your Soul's Plan, Discovering the Real Meaning of the Life You Planned Before You Were Born, explores the pre-birth planning of physicians, physical illness, having disabled children, deafness, blindness, drug addiction, alcoholism, the death of a loved one, and accidents. His second book, Your Soul's Gift, The Healing Power of the Life You Planned Before You Were Born, explores, so I am saying both of these again. So let's go back to this. Of spiritual awakening, miscarriage, abortion, suicide, caregiving, sexuality, adoption, having pets, poverty, mental illness, and other life challenges and experiences. His third book, Your Soul's Love, Living the Love You Planned Before You Were Born, is about the pre-birth planning and of challenges related to romantic relationships or their absence, infidelity, impotence, interdimensional parenting, raising children seemingly alone after the death of one's partner, being single, and celibate relationships. His books have been translated into 27 languages. He teaches internationally on the subject of pre-birth planning at such venues as the United Nations, Kripalu, 1440 Multiversity, and Hollyhock. For more information, you can visit him online at www.yoursoulsplan.com. And without further ado, let me introduce the wonderful Rob Schwartz. Welcome, Rob.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with all of you. Wave if you can hear me, please. All right, very good. I'm a big fan of Helping Parents Heal, and anything I can do to support this fantastic organization, I'm happy to do. I want to start by sharing my personal story with you so you understand how I came to do this very unusual kind of work. Back in 2003, I was self-employed in the corporate world, self-employed as a marketing and communications consultant, basically doing different kinds of corporate writing. I did not enjoy this work at all. And perhaps more to the point, I felt that there was something I had come to Earth to do that I wasn't doing. And that sense of not doing it kept nagging at me. And I knew I had to make a change. So in mid 2003, three very significant things all happened within just a couple of months of each other that got me to leave the corporate world and write the first book, Your Soul's Plan. The first thing that happened, I went to see a psychic medium, which is something I had never done before. And I wasn't even sure that I believed in mediumship. But the other things that I had tried to figure out what I was supposed to do with my life, none of them were working at all. And so almost in desperation, I went to see a medium. And she started off the session by saying, your spirit guides are here. And I said, what is a spirit guide? I mean, I'd never even heard the term before. So she explained that. And then she said, your guides would like to speak directly with you. And she started to channel them. The first thing they said to me right out of the box was, you planned your life, including your biggest challenges, before you were born. And I just shook my head and I said, well, why in the world would I have done that? They said, you did this for purposes of spiritual growth. Now, I probably would not have believed that this was a valid phenomenon, but then they launched into this lengthy and detailed monologue in which they went through my challenges one by one and explained why I had planned them. This was very compelling because I had not told the medium anything about myself prior to the session, nor did I tell my guides anything during the session. So as you can imagine, if you're talking to beings who know everything about you without you telling them anything, that gives them a lot of credibility. So when they introduced this idea of pre-birth planning, I was inclined to listen to them. That was the first thing that happened. Just a few weeks later, I was introduced to a woman who has the ability to go into trance and channel her higher self, her soul. At this point, I was starting to think about writing a book about pre-birth planning. And so I said to her, may I speak with your soul about pre-birth planning? And fortunately, she agreed. She and I got together 5 times for a total of about 15 hours. And in this 15 hours of channeled conversation, her higher self explained to me in great detail how pre-birth planning works and why we plan challenges for ourselves. That 15 hours of channeling on pre-birth planning formed the foundation for everything that I went on to do after that. And then right around the same time, the most significant of the 3 things that happened, I was home alone in my apartment in Chicago where I lived at the time. It was the middle of a weekday afternoon. I was just working on some writing project for a client. I decided to take a break and go for a walk. So I'm walking down the sidewalk in the middle of the afternoon. And all of a sudden, I was overcome with this feeling of pure, overwhelming, unconditional love for every person I saw. I call it pure, unconditional love because that's as close as I can get in English. This was not a human kind of love. It was an experience of divine love, a transcendent experience. I remember very clearly because the first person I saw was a cab driver. This man, of course, was a total stranger to me. He was just sitting behind the wheel of his cab, waiting for a customer to come along. And I looked at him and just felt this pure, overwhelming, unconditional love for him. And then I looked up, there was a man's barber shop on the corner. I looked through the window and I saw the barber cutting a customer's hair. Again, 2 total strangers. But as I looked at them, there again was this feeling of pure, overwhelming, unconditional love. Then I turned around and I saw a young woman, a mother, pushing an infant in a stroller down the sidewalk. And as I looked at them, there again was that pure, overwhelming love. Everywhere I looked, every time I saw another person, this feeling of love washed over me. Now, as this was happening, you could say that I was caused to know I was caused to know that we as souls are made literally from the energy of unconditional love. I got that message loud and clear. What I didn't understand was why this was happening at that particular time. That became clear a couple of years later. By that time, I looked at a lot of people's pre-birth plans for my first book. And what I had found was that in every single case, no exceptions, the pre-birth plan was always based on great wisdom and complete unconditional love for every person involved. This was true even when very difficult challenges were being planned. It was true when quote unquote negative roles were being scripted for people. It was always based on unconditional love for everyone involved. And then I thought back to that experience walking down the sidewalk, and I realized, aha, that experience was given to me so that when I found this result in my research, I would be certain that what I was finding was true. And this is why I can say to you this evening that I believe that we as souls are made literally from the energy of unconditional love, because that was my experience walking down the street that day. So the combination of these three things, the session with the medium, the woman's channeling of her higher self, and the spiritually transformative experience of unconditional love for all people, the combination of those things got me to say, okay, I'll leave the corporate world and write a book on how we plan our lives. 3 years later, the book came out. At that time, it was called Courageous Souls. It's now called Your Soul's Plan. And, you know, it's funny how life works out. During the 3 years I was writing it, I remember thinking to myself from time to time, I wonder if anybody is going to be interested in reading anything that I'm writing here. I mean, I truly didn't know, but it was just this burning desire in my heart that I felt I had to do this. And then it turned out that there was a lot of interest, and it led to a completely different and much more fulfilling life in which I feel that I am doing what I came to Earth to do. So that in a nutshell is how I came to do this work. Let me summarize for you what I found in the research for my books. There are 5 main reasons why we plan big challenges before we're born. The first is the one you've probably already heard the most about, and that is balancing and releasing karma. Balancing and releasing karma are not the same thing. Balancing karma means you plan to have a new experience that energetically offsets a previous experience. Releasing karma means you heal the underlying tendency that created karma in the first place. In other words, if all you do is balance karma without also releasing it, you'll just end up recreating the same karma over and over again. An example I like to use for balancing karma is 2 people who had a past life together in which one was ill and the other was the caregiver. When those 2 people transition back to the other side at the end of that incarnation and have their life review, as we all do, they'll see the caregiving relationship portrayed in the life review. And when they see that, they may or may not feel complete with that kind of relationship. If they feel complete with that experience, then as I understand it, there is no karma, and they'll go on to plan something completely different. But if they feel incomplete with that experience for any reason at all, the feeling of incompletion is the karma. If that happens, then they will likely plan something in the next incarnation to come to a place of completion with a caregiving relationship. And most likely what they're going to do is trade places. The one who was ill will plan to be the caregiver. The one who is the caregiver will plan to have an illness. That's reason number 1, balancing and releasing karma. The second main reason for planning big challenges is healing. And I'll give you an example from Your Soul's Plan, the first book. There's a chapter in that book about the pre-birth planning of deafness and blindness. The deafness story is about a young woman. Her name is Penelope. She was 24 at the time I spoke with her for the book. She was born completely deaf in both ears. I had the opportunity in working with mediums and channels to go into Penelope's pre-birth planning session and actually hear the conversation she had with her guide when the deafness was chosen. And what we find out in that conversation is that in the lifetime immediately prior to this one, Penelope had the same mother she had in that lifetime. And in that past life, when she was a little girl, she heard her mother shot to death by the mother's boyfriend. Now, she didn't actually see the murder, but she heard the gunshots that led to her mother's death. As you would expect, she was traumatized by that, so much so that it led to a suicide later in that lifetime. So Penelope returned to spirit from that incarnation with what you could call an energy of unhealed trauma, which now needs to be healed. In her pre-birth planning session, her spirit guide says to her, "My dear, would you prefer to be born deaf so that no similar trauma will happen to you again, and so that you can complete your healing from the last lifetime?" And she responds, "Yes, that is what I want and what I wish to do." And what follows is a fascinating conversation in which she and her guide work out the details of the deafness. That's reason number 2 for planning big challenges, healing. The third reason is service to others. If you read spiritual or metaphysical literature, you've probably heard of the concept of oneness. This is the idea that there's actually only one being in existence in the universe. And it's you, it's me, it's all of us. Each of us is an individualized expression of the one. The orientation toward service to others, which I have seen in literally every single pre-birth plan I've ever looked at, it's always there in some form or another. That orientation, I think, is a natural expression of oneness consciousness, which is our natural state of consciousness when we're home on the other side. So in other words, let's say that you and I are back on the other side and we're planning a lifetime together. And you perceive, you actually experience that I am literally you. It's not just a concept the way it is here, it's your experience. If that's your perception, then of course you will want to be of service to me. And if I perceive, if I experience that you are literally me, then of course I will want to be of service to you. So again, this orientation towards service, I think, is an expression of oneness consciousness, and that's our natural state when we're home on the other side. That's the third reason, service to others. The fourth reason we plan big challenges before we incarnate, and this I think is the big one out of the 5, is a desire to experience contrast. And let me explain what I mean by that. I shared with you my spiritually transformative experience of unconditional love as I was walking down the street that day. The other side, our non-physical home, as I understand it, is a realm of complete unconditional love. So if we as souls are made from unconditional love, which was my experience, and if we are in this realm of only unconditional love, that means we experience no contrast to ourselves, which in turn means we don't fully understand or appreciate what it means to be a soul made from unconditional love. So I think what we're doing here on the physical plane is that we've come for the contrast, the not love, so to speak, which we would all agree there's a lot of. Because through the experience of the not love, by the time you go home at the end of an incarnation, you understand much more deeply what unconditional love is, which is another way of saying you now have a much more profound self-knowing. This idea comes up in one of the Conversation with God books by Neil Donald Walsh. And God asked Neil to explain it using the analogy of the white room, which goes like this. Imagine that you are a white being in a white room. So you are white. The ceiling is white. The floor is white. All the walls around you are white. Everything in the room is white, including you. Now, if you are such a being in such a room, how do you know that you're white? The answer is you don't. And in fact, you can't until you experience something that is other than white. Then once you've had that experience, then you understand much more deeply what it means to be a white being in a white room. This, I think, is what the soul is doing here in the Earth School. We are love. We are in a realm of only love. We therefore experience no contrast to ourselves. We therefore don't fully understand who or what we are. And so we come from the contrast because through that experience, by the time we go home again, we understand what unconditional love is. In other words, we understand who and what we really are. That's reason number 4. And the 5th reason, strictly speaking, is a subset of number 2, healing. But it's so important, I like to break it out as a separate item of its own. And that is healing or correcting false feelings or false beliefs about oneself. So the way this works is that just about everybody has had at least one past life, and usually many, in which something happened that caused you to pick up a false feeling or a false belief about yourself. 2 of the most common false feelings or beliefs about self are 1, that one is powerless, and 2, that one is unworthy or perhaps even worthless. If you feel or believe yourself to be powerless, unworthy, or worthless, to your soul that feels discordant because your soul knows that those things simply are not true. And your soul will then want you to heal or clear the false feeling or false belief. So how would you do that? Well, in the physical realm where we are, what will happen is you will magnetize to yourself experiences that seem on the surface to confirm the false feeling or false belief. This is actually a fundamental function of life in the physical realm. The world is set up to mirror you back to you so that you can find out what lies within your consciousness, even if it's subconscious. And if there's something there in need of healing, like a false feeling or false belief about oneself, the world is then mirroring it back to you so that you become consciously aware of it, and then you can set about healing or releasing it. So that's reason number 5 for planning big challenges before we incarnate, healing or correcting false feelings or false beliefs about the self. Now, we could spend a lot of time talking about any one of those 5. And if we spend a lot of time talking about all of them, most likely, at the end of that conversation, you would say something to me like, okay, Rob, I understand now why some souls would plan some challenges. I understand why some would choose mild challenges or maybe moderate challenges, but I still can't wrap my mind around why somebody would plan something as painful as losing a child. And I phrased it that way on purpose. I used the phrase, I still can't wrap my mind around it. I phrased it that way because you really can't wrap the mind around it. You know, here in the physical realm, the mind, the ego mind, not the super mind or the one mind, but the ego mind is our primary operating system for most people. The ego mind would never make a decision like that, and therefore it doesn't understand it. The ego mind makes decisions based on a cost-benefit analysis. If something like this were proposed, the ego mind would say, well, what will I get out of it? What will it cost me? Is it worth doing? But when you're back on the other side, the mind is not your operating system. The heart is. And the heart wants one thing and one thing only, and that is to give and receive love. So let's say you're back on the other side, and another soul comes to you who you know well and love deeply. This is another soul that you've had many past lives with. You've played many, many different roles for each other. You love this soul dearly. This soul loves you dearly. And this soul comes to you and says, I'm planning a relatively short incarnation the next time around, and then explains why. I would like you to be the mother or the father who shepherds me through that short lifetime. If the heart is your primary operating system, which it is on the other side, and you know and love this soul well and deeply, then most likely your response to that is an immediate yes. It's not going to make sense to the ego mind. That isn't the way the ego mind looks at things. But the heart wants just one thing, and that is to give and receive love. I'll also add that when you are back on the other side, there are big differences in your perspective between there and here. One of them is that when you're back on the other side and planning a lifetime, you know that the lifetime is actually very brief. No matter how many years you're planning, it still looks very brief to you. It doesn't look that way when you're here, especially if you're suffering, but on the other side, you know that a lifetime is actually here and gone like a clap of thunder. You also know that nobody is permanently harmed by anything that happens here. You may or may not know that while you're incarnate, but you do know that when you're back on the other side planning a lifetime. The other big difference in perspective is that when you're on the other side, you know that all the growth and learning, the healing, the expansion, the evolution that come out of an incarnation will become part of you literally for all eternity. Again, you may or may not know that when you're here, but you do know that on the other side. So from that perspective, that a life is very brief, nobody is permanently harmed by anything that happens here, and yet the wisdom, the healing, the expansion, the evolution become part of you for eternity. From that perspective, it actually does make sense that some souls, not all, but some, would plan very, very difficult challenges. Now, I'm talking about all of this in a fairly analytic way. And so I want to make the point that this sort of information is not intended to create a spiritual bypass, by which I mean, if you have lost a child, you're not going to hear this information and then suddenly feel, oh, well, I'm okay with that. It's not intended to do that. If you actually had that kind of response, that is what is called a spiritual bypass. And that is not for your highest good. It's not healing. It's not part of your evolutionary path. It will actually hold you back. This information, this perspective is intended to be a source of comfort while you go through the very difficult grief process. There's no shortcut for doing that. As any grief counselor will tell you, the only way out is through, and that is true. But hopefully this perspective that I'm sharing tonight can be a source of comfort as you feel your feelings, allow the grief to be there, and go through that very difficult grieving process. So that's pretty much what I wanted to share tonight.
Good.
And I'm
I,
happy
I
to.
think that it's really important to say that what you've said is it's so reassuring, especially for parents who are early on in their journey, because even for me, even though I'd had that hug from Morgan, I had that shared death experience with him, I really couldn't wrap my head around the fact that we might have created a soul plan and decided this beforehand until I was 2 years on in my healing journey. So it is sometimes difficult in the beginning for parents um, to understand or to even entertain as an idea. So I have lots of wonderful questions for you though in the chat box. Is it possible to ask you some questions now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, first of all, Sherry's asking if we as souls become aware of our soul plan by a past life regression session, can we be shown future events, or are we only shown past and present life experiences? Thank you. So she's wondering if you can also move forward or see in the future.
There are people who do future life progressions. In fact, Brian Weiss has an entire book on that subject. If you read that book, and I read it many years ago, what I recall is that the sorts of information that people were retrieving in those sessions tended to be very vague, non-specific, almost wispy in nature. It's not nearly as concrete and detailed as the information people get in a past life regression or in a between lives regression. And I think probably the reason for that, or one reason, is that you're just looking at a potential timeline, and there are many potential timelines. So perhaps it just can't be better defined than what he found.
That's fascinating. Yes, and we do still have free will. We have a question about free will. If we have our our souls planned out for us, is there free will in this plan?
Yeah, there is free will. So when we talk about a pre-birth plan, It does not mean that everything is set in stone or predestined. For the most part, things are set up as potentials to varying degrees. There are a small number of things that are predestined and set in stone. For example, your choice of parents. Once you're born, obviously you can't change who your parents are. That decision is now set in stone. Or if you plan to be born with, let's say, a physical handicap that can't be treated by medical science in the time period in which you're incarnating, which is something you would know on the other side, then short of what we call a miracle, you will have that handicap for the duration of that lifetime. That's set in stone. But the vast majority of experiences in the Earth School are set up as potentials. Let me put it another way. My wife is a channel, and she channels a collective, a group consciousness that we call the beings of light, or BOL for short. The way they've explained it to us, they said, imagine that every person has their own stack of sheets of paper. And in this stack, every individual sheet is a complete set of pre-birth plans. So each one of you has your own stack of sheets of paper. The sheets at the top of the stack are the highest vibrational pre-birth plans. Those are the plans where most of the learning is done through love, peace, and joy, not so much through pain and suffering. The sheets at the bottom of the stack are the ones where it's the opposite, the lowest vibrational pre-birth plans. Most of the learning is done through pain and suffering, not so much through love, peace, and joy. So you have free will. And within whatever confines you've placed around your pre-birth plans, you have total free will to move up or down in your individual stack of sheets of paper. So as you make free will decisions that raise your vibration, you move up in the stack. As you use your free will to make decisions that lower your vibration, you move down in the stack. Now, there are parameters around that you put in place before you were born. Again, I come back to an example like being born with a certain physical handicap that medical science can't treat. So if that's your plan, it's not going to matter what decisions you make after you get here. But again, very few things fall into that category. The rest is just potentials.
That's very interesting. We have one of the parents is asking about whether or not this type of past life regression or between lives regressions, not speaking of the future ones, but do they work on everyone, or do you have to be a specific type of person to be able to experience these?
They don't work on everyone. I think everybody has the ability to do it, but it doesn't always work. And it basically depends on how much you can relax. How deeply can you let go and relax? Excuse me. When we do group workshops, there are always some people who don't go into trance. In the private sessions, there's a small percentage of clients who don't go into trance. But the odds are very much in your favor. And for both the workshops and the private sessions, I do everything I can prior to the session to increase your chances of going into trance. There's a 20-minute recorded orientation with a lot of tips about how to go into trance and what to expect. There's also another recording of a guided meditation, and the instructions are to listen to it multiple times prior to the workshop or prior to your session and practice relaxing to the sound of my voice. Not everybody actually does that, but if you do it, that will increase your chance of going into trance as well.
That's wonderful. There's another question about the Akashic records. The mom is asking, what is your opinion about accessing Akashic records as a valid way to receive a message about your plan? Do you have any?
I think it's a completely valid way to go about it. And if that calls to you, I would recommend it.
Okay, wonderful. And then Debbie's asking a really interesting question. When her grandson was 3, he told her that, of course, he lived with God before he was born. I chose mommy to be my mommy, he was speaking. His favorite book was Mountains of Tibet, about dying and reincarnation and choosing your next incarnation. He is now 17 and doesn't remember any of this or the spirits and angels he saw until the age of 7. Will he remember someday? Is that something that you could maybe address, Rob?
Well, I think that depends on his pre-birth plans and the free will decisions he makes going forward. It's certainly possible that he'll remember. We're living in a time of planetary spiritual awakening. I mean, there are people all over the earth who are awakening and remembering their spiritual origins every day. And that's one of the main reasons we all plan to be here, is to be part of that awakening.
That's beautiful. Um, so Jackie's asking your opinion of how long after death people normally wait to reincarnate.
That's something that is still not clear to me. I've asked that question and sometimes have been given the response 25 to 75 years in linear time, but I'm not confident of that number.
Okay, great. Laura is asking, I'm curious about what your process was for your findings.
Uh, the process for the books or in the private sessions?
Probably in the books when you were researching this.
So in the first two books, Your Soul's Planning, Your Soul's Gift, the process was to work with mediums and channels who in one way or another could find out what somebody had planned. They go about it in very different ways, but it's through mediums or channels. Now in the third book, the new book, Your Soul's Love, it's a combination of sessions with mediums and channels and between lives, soul regressions, the kind of hypnosis I practice.
Wonderful. Kathy's asking if we always have to reincarnate. Do you have any thoughts on that?
My understanding is that nobody is forced to reincarnate. Nobody is ever forced to do anything they really don't want to do. And this leads people to say, well, that can't be true because I would never choose to be here in a place like this, or I would never choose to experience what I've gone through. And I certainly understand that. But again, your perspective is very different when you're back on the other side.
That's beautiful. Let's see. Kathy's asking also, can you comment on Earth, I guess, Earth-based souls as well as angelic souls and I guess interplanetary souls, I think is what she's asking. Do you have any thoughts about those three types of souls?
The language that I use is a little bit different than that. We actually have a workshop, which my wife channeled, called Star Souls. And the next one is February 11th, so coming up soon. That's a group regression. The Star Souls regression is very similar to the Between Lives Soul regression, but it's oriented toward what we and the beings of light call Star Souls, which is somebody who comes from a faraway place. It's usually a much more highly evolved civilization. They bring unique gifts with them in service to the earth, in service to ascension, in service to Gaia. And so the focus of the Star Souls workshop is to help people learn about their intergalactic origins. What were the gifts they brought in as a star soul? How did they activate those gifts? How did they use them in service to humanity?
That's beautiful. So this is something that's going to be starting one of those series that you're starting soon then with Liesel. Is that correct?
This is not a series. It's just a standalone workshop, which we do, maybe 2 or 3 times a year. Again, the next one is February 11th, and I'm sure we'll do at least one more later in the year.
Okay, great. Pam is asking, what is the purpose of us not being aware of this planning? Why wouldn't we have any memory of conducting this planning or of experiencing the periods in between incarnations?
There are a number of reasons for that. One of the main reasons is that by forgetting all of that and by setting up a situation in which it seems to most people that Earth is all there is, this is reality, there is nothing else. If that's how it looks to you, then everything that happens in your life is going to be exponentially more intense. It will seem to have much higher stakes. And a lot of the learning and growth in the Earth School comes through the experience of the intense emotions that will be generated by that kind of perception. And in particular, learning how to work skillfully with your own intense emotions. That's a big part of the reason.
Wow, that's really interesting. Kay is asking, if we have so much unconditional love and purity, why would we need lessons in pain and suffering? I guess this is the contrast that you were talking about at the beginning. Why would we even want to know? So I think you kind of addressed that already, but maybe you could say a little more.
Yeah, let me put it a different way, and I'll use a metaphor. Let's say that your pre-birth incarnation is to know yourself as the light. And let's make it concrete. So let's use candlelight in this case. So if that's your pre-birth intention, then one thing you could do after you're here in a body, you could get a candle, take it outside at high noon on a perfectly sunny day, light the candle, and look at the flame. That will give you a certain understanding of candlelight. Something else you could do would be to get a candle, take it outside at midnight on a pitch black night, light the candle, and look at the flame. That will give you a very different understanding of what candlelight is.
That's beautiful. Um, so Jackie's asking, once you live a very difficult life and major challenges, do you continue to pick more lives with such heavy lessons, or have you learned what you needed to, I guess?
That's up to the individual. You have free will, and if you want more difficult lives, you are free to plan them. What I've seen in my work, though, is that the average soul wants to have a huge variety of experience. So if you've had a difficult incarnation or a series of them, you would be likely at some point to plan what I refer to as a vacation lifetime. And everybody knows somebody who is on, or at least appears to be on, a vacation lifetime where everything seems to go well and smoothly and easily. I think that those people are just experiencing the sort of variety the Earth School can offer. And if you think about it, they serve a very important function, because if literally everybody on the planet were suffering terribly, then we would conclude that life is suffering. And that, I think, would be a very sad, unfortunate, and inaccurate conclusion. So those who are on the what I call the vacation lifetime, they're showing us life can be like this.
That's fascinating. And I think all of us probably thought we were on the vacation lifetime before this event happened to us. Um, Sherry's saying, if a member of a soul group decides to use free will and alter the pre-birth plan, would this spill over into the to the potential to potentially limit the growth of the other soul group members?
That kind of thing is taken into account. So when you choose to incarnate in the Earth School and you're doing your pre-birth planning, you know that everybody, including you, has free will. You know that somebody might make lower vibrational, unloving decisions that are not optimal for soul growth. And you're willing to take that risk because the Earth School offers such incredible benefits. And usually the attitude that I've seen in people's pre-birth planning sessions, when conversations about this possibility come up and they're presented by a guide with, for example, how something could go wrong, generally the response is something along the lines of, if that happens, I will work with it to foster my growth.
Wow, very interesting. Sarah's asking, do you think that we accomplish everything we came here for in the lifetime that we're here for? Can free will get in the way of fulfilling our soul's plan?
It depends on your definition of fulfilling. I think it's very rare that somebody leads the highest possible by the highest vibrational plan possible from the moment they're born until the moment they transition. Jesus, I think, did that, and a few other remarkable beings. But that's not my definition of fulfilling your pre-birth plans. My definition would be that you learned most of what you came to learn. You did most of what you came to do. If that's the definition of fulfilling, then most people are fulfilling their pre-birth plans.
Oh, so interesting. So Meg is asking a question that's kind of fascinating, and would love your opinion on this. I visited Ireland and was visiting a monastery in Wicklow. We walked around the buildings and I saw a woman walking with water carried in cockets on a wooden yoke. I guess this way probably. Knew it was me, and then it was gone. Do you see people having this experience, seeing themselves in another time?
I have not seen that firsthand in my work. I've heard stories like that. So certainly it does happen, but it's not something that I've run into.
Well, I think it's fascinating though, because I understand where you're coming from. That's happened to me. Um, so Michelle is asking, in the soul planning just between parents and the child, excuse me, is the soul planning just between the parents and the child, or does it include the planned extended family and friends? Asking because the early passing of a child affects more than just the parents. Have you had a past life regression where the planning occurred between a child or a young adult and his or her best friend?
The planning, as I understand it, is vast, and it's so vast, it's really beyond human comprehension. So, for example, some of the earliest information I received about my own pre-birth plan, and this came while I was working on the first book. I was told that I had pre-birth plans with many, many different beings to write this book for them and other books as well. Uh, so, you know, if we do a past life regression or between lives regression, there wouldn't be time to bring in all of those people. And it's going to be the same for each one of you. The planning is so vast, it's just beyond human comprehension, but it takes into account permutations and vibrations that radiate out far beyond what you can see with your eyes.
It's beautiful. Laura's asking, for those of us who had more than one child crossover, did we not learn enough with the first passing, and therefore did we have to experience another? Or were both passings planned? I guess you've kind of addressed that, because obviously we decide on our own what we want to experience. But um, what are your thoughts, Rob?
Well, I think the potential for that to happen would have been known. Now, I don't know whether it was considered to be low potential, moderate, high. Sometimes the potential is so high as to be almost certain. It could be anywhere in that range. And it's going to depend upon your free will decisions, but even more so the free will decisions of the children who we're talking about here. All I can tell you is that the possibility would have been foreseen, but I don't think I would phrase it as, you didn't learn an intended lesson and so you had to lose somebody else. I don't think that's an accurate way of putting it.
Okay, well, good. So Constance is asking a difficult question, but maybe you could just address it to reassure parents in our group, about if pre-birth planning includes things like murder and other uh, things that could happen in this lifetime, to our children, that just don't seem like they could ever be planned. But I know that you're writing your fourth book on that subject, but maybe you could just broach it a little bit right now.
Yeah, I'm hesitant to say too much because I haven't looked at murder the way I'm going to. But the sense that I have of it, I said earlier that we as souls are made from the energy of unconditional love. So if that's true, and that was my experience, then it's going to be very rare that an unconditionally loving being is going to agree as part of a pre-birth plan to commit a murder. I suspect that happens occasionally, but very, very rarely. And I think most of the time it's going to be a free will decision.
Okay, well, thank you. We have just a little bit of time left, but a lot of the other questions are asking about how to sign up for your upcoming events. And maybe you could just talk a little bit about what's coming up for everyone here.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So the website is yoursoulsplan.com. And when you first get there, something will pop up asking you if you want to sign up for the newsletter. I would encourage you to do that so that you'll know what we're doing. But go to the events page, scroll down, you can see all the workshops there. The next group, Between Lives Soul Regression, is this Sunday, February 4th. And so just to describe what happens in a Between Lives Soul Regression, whether you do it in the group or in a private session, it's the same process. There are some preliminary steps to help you relax. Then you experience a past life, and then you move from the past life to your council of elders. And when you're in front of your council, you ask basically any question you would like to ask about the plans for your life. So the average person is asking, what did I plan? Why did I make those plans? How am I doing? How can I better fulfill my plan? If you're doing it as a private session, you fill out an intake form and you tell me what your questions are for the council, and then I prompt you to ask them. That way you don't have to try to remember all of them while you're in a trance state. If you're doing it as part of a group workshop, like on February 4th, when everybody gets to their council, then I prompt everybody to ask the same series of questions. But the questions cover all the major areas of your life. So you're receiving individualized responses, even though everybody is asking the same set of questions. So that's on February 4th. Star Souls is February 11th. We've talked about that already. Liesl and I have a mentorship and membership community called Rise to the Path, which is all about how to move up in that stack of sheets of paper. It's all about how to raise your vibration and activate your highest vibrational pre-birth plans. That meets the third Tuesday evening of every month. And there's a Rise to the Path page at yoursoulsplan.com that you can take a look at. Really a beautiful group of very, very loving, open-hearted people. If you feel like you don't have spiritual community, this is really a great place to come. And then March 16th, we'll be doing the Between Lives Soul Regression Workshop in Spanish for anybody who is a Spanish speaker. Those are the main things that are, oh, the shift course. Liesl and I will have a course on empaths and sensitives for the Shift Network in March and April. And that will be focused on how to use your gifts as an empath or an intuitive or a sensitive in the highest vibrational way, how to manage energies so that rather than impinging on you, you're more of a bringer of energy rather than somebody who's receiving it and being impinged upon by it, and how to activate your gifts as an empath or a sensitive in service to humanity. And what I told Elizabeth, you know, Liesl and I are very big supporters of helping parents heal. So we're giving a permanent 20% discount on everything we do going forward indefinitely to HPH members. The one exception to that is Star Souls, because I think it's probably going to end up getting rescheduled. But everything else we do 20% off indefinitely because we want to support you.
So thank you. And how do people access the 20% discount if they do want to take a class?
Write to me through the contact form at yoursoulsplan.com. Tell me you're with Helping Parents Heal. I'll send you a discount code.
Thank you. That's wonderful. We have a few other questions in the chat box, and people are so unhappy that they didn't get them answered. So let's see. One of them is very quickly, if it is free will or our life plan to choose to have a child pass or transition. So I think that you did answer that, but maybe you could just address that quickly for
I certainly believe that it is, but again, not set up as a certainty, but planned as a potential of some sort, possibly unlikely, possibly moderate likelihood, possibly highly likely. That's going to vary a lot depending upon the plan.
And then let's see, Mary's asking a question that I think is kind of fascinating. Do people share their council of elders, or is everyone unique?
Everybody has their own council, but there are some beings who are on more than one council. So Jesus has shown up on a number of people's councils. Saint Germain has made different appearances. Mother Mary, It varies quite a bit, though.
That's beautiful. Um, I have another one here that I just want to say, Lisa, yes, yes, yes. But she's asking, will I ever see my child again that is passed? And I just want to reassure you myself that you definitely will, but I know that Rob will reassure you as well.
Yeah, you absolutely will. And actually, you already are. You will see your child when you sleep at night and you leave the physical body, and in your astral or spirit body, you go back to the other side. And one of the things you'll do there is be with your child. I know that that's not what you were getting at with the question, but I just want you to know that you are having that experience, even though it's very unlikely that you'll remember it. But when this lifetime is over, you will be reunited with your loved ones.
Beautiful. Thank you. We have Hilda asking, can you please touch on karma cleansing quickly? Is that a possible thing to touch on quickly? We have 4 minutes.
I'm not sure what the definition of karma cleansing would be. Usually you have to do something to balance your karma. Karma cleansing to me sounds like some sort of shortcut, and I'm not aware of any shortcuts.
I think she's talking about chakra cleansing, but
Oh, chakra cleansing.
which is a little different. But yes, anyway, we have just a few more minutes. I wanted to say that one of our members who actually has an affiliate group called Helping Parents Heal en Espanol, the leader of the program, our affiliate leader, is on here tonight, and she's going to be sure to take your class in Spanish, which is very exciting. So both you and Liesl speak Spanish?
I know a few words, but not very many. I don't think Liesl knows any, but there will be a translator there.
Oh, that's a great idea. Well, in any case, thank you so much for being here. And I am really excited that you were able to do so, even though it wasn't with Liesl, who is now actually channeling the courses that you're going to be giving in March, which is really exciting. So we always ask everyone to say thank you and good evening. And if all of you would like to go ahead and unmute. And Irene, did you want to say something first?
No, I just wanted to say thank you. It was a great evening. Thank you, Rob.
You're
Very
welcome.
informative.
Welcome.
And we always ask everybody else to unmute. You're welcome to do so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Bye,
Rob.
everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
Lovely.
Great meeting.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Rob.
Gracias.
you.
Bye, everybody.
Everyone.
Bye.